I'm a hoe.
All right. I may have to obviously my kids aren't sleeping like they should be with Christmas break. So if I have to just get up, just excuse me because they're probably over there doing something they shouldn't be. But hello, friends and brothers. How are you? Welcome to the live show. Glad to have everybody. How are you?
Glad to be had.
Glad to be had. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Tonight I was thinking, I talked very briefly with Dennis about this. I'm just at a point in my life where I don't want to be like tactful anymore. And I was on Texas Freemasons and the conversation about
it. Old yet, man. You can't be that untactful.
I'm just jaded, I guess. But and here's why. Collectively, by collectively, I mean me and then you and I have been talking about this. It's probably almost 9 years now. Beating this, I thought it was a dead horse, right? Because I just over and over and over. And then we see conversations on Texas Freemasons. And to be clear, it's nothing against the person that started the conversation. Because I know where his mind is, right? He's a brother I respect a lot. But he's just trying to start the conversation. And then seeing the feedback we're getting from people is like, obviously there's a disconnect where like you're not learning. Like we're teaching it, we're putting it out there, and you're not picking it up. And it's a jerk thing to say, I guess. But I'm at that point, like we talk about the importance of education. We talk about the importance of really just kind of leading the charge in our communities and in our counties to just to be like these pillars that the people look up to. And we can't even fund our own organization. And I hate to say it, we used to say fund our own hobby, right? And someone made a comment, I don't remember where it was. It wasn't in the recent conversation, but it was pretty recent. And they're like, it's a hobby. Like it shouldn't be expensive. We shouldn't have all these high expectations. It's a hobby, basically. It's like, no, dude, it's not a hobby. Like if I want to kind of lean a little bit on Brother Norman's boat club analogy, it's the boat club, right? If I'm joining a boat club, the sailing club, if I join a sailing club, I don't have to take an obligation, right? I'm not, there's nothing to it. I pay. It's like if I want to join
Solomon's Yacht Club. That's what it is.
What? Oh, Solomon's Yacht Club. There it is. But if I want to join the Elks or the Lions Club or Rotary, many of those I've been a member of, except for the Elks, I turn in an application and I'm in. Right? There's nothing to it. There's no rigorous process. There's no vetting really. It's here. Can you pay the amount? And granted, there's a lot of lodges like that, but that's not what we are. And so to say we're just to kind of reduce us to in the same category as a hobby, I feel is doing us a disservice. And so to that extent, we should expect to have higher. That's weird to see, though. We should have higher expectations of ourselves financially and among other things, but that's really kind of where I wanted to lead the conversation with tonight.
Well, and I've been guilty of this myself, calling it a hobby, because
I
get frustrated with people wanting to do fundraisers to fund our organization, and I completely disagree with that. I think that our if our members aren't leaving money to the lodges and creating a nest egg or a trust for our lodges as what on top of our dues that pay for our daily expenses, then we should be closing the doors. We should not be asking anybody to fund our brotherhood, right? And I've always said we should never ask somebody else to fund our hobbies. You know, we're not the what's that called that the band has or the football team has, to where they raise money for the kids.
I know what you're talking about.
Booster Club.
Booster,
Club. Yeah, we're not a boosters club here, right? this is something that we get benefit from, or we should be getting benefit from. And if we aren't getting benefit from it, then, just close the doors. But if you are getting benefits from it, then you should be paying for it yourself and not asking anyone else to pay. That's my 2, 3, and 4 cents worth.
Yeah, I agree. Anyone else have thoughts? Oh, come on.
Bueller.
So there was a post earlier today, I think it was an AI thing on the Texas Freemasons, and I think it may have been another Masonic group or something, but it said something, how do you organize a fundraiser?
Mm-hmm.
And I think you posted on that. I put an answer. I said, every member dig in his pocket, pull out $100 or $200 and give it to the secretary. Boom, funds raised.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. Right. I believe in that 100%.
Yeah. What did I say? You're right. Like I posted, it was along the lines of, charge dues high enough where you can cover operating cost. Educate your Step 2 is educate your brothers. Step 3 is repeat the process. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I agree.
Exactly.
The fundraiser, like even for the Knights of St. Andrew, once you pay your money to join, we're an invitation only body, but we still have initiation fees, and that pays for some of the regalia and stuff like that. But once you pay those dues, that we basically don't ask for any other money except for to give to our charities. And this year, what I asked everybody to do was give $5 per month to the fund, so that at the end of the year we'd have a $2,500 check to give to the School for Dyslexia.
Mm.
And you'd be amazed at how many people were not willing to do that. Now, there's a couple of us that actually doubled that because we believe in what it is. But even in a situation like that where you're invested into a part of the organization that's invitation only, and you're known to be the leaders of the fraternity, you still aren't willing to give where money is needed for your fraternity or the brotherhood.
There's an old saying, and I didn't like it. I just don't like the way it's put, but it's accurate. And basically, it's there's two things that'll always be true about Masons, no matter where you travel. Is that one, they'll always be cheap, and two, they like to bitch. And I mean, that's I kind of
bitch, but I ain't cheap.
But I kind of dismissed that for a long time. I was like, I don't really like that. And but over time, I've come around to like, yeah, we are cheap, and we do. I mean, obviously we like to complain, but we are of all the organizations I've dealt with. I've been in organizations before where Lions Club, for example, not Lions Club, Rotary, where they'll ask you to make donations there at the meeting, and they'll raise
$40 a month.
Yeah. Yes.
For the Rotary Club in Goliad, Texas.
That sounds about right. I think that's what it was in Cleburne. $40 a month. And yeah. And you'd still donate on top of that. And people would just and the thing is, like if you same town when it had a Masonic lodge, which tells you a lot about the town, when it had a Masonic lodge versus when you went to their Rotary meetings. You can go to a Rotary meeting and you can look around, and granted it's male and female, so you go see both sides. But you go to a Rotary meeting, you look around, and there's all the leadership in the community. There they all are. Even if you're just like, okay, just male only, there's still all the male leadership in the communities there. You go to the Masonic lodge, nobody there, just a bunch of cheapskates that want to complain.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
I had a conversation with somebody recently about that they were stating that they no longer see that. When they first joined, that's all they saw was all the leaders of the communities, and now they've they've watched it dwindle away through the years, and now there's nobody left to support the lodge
I thought you
because
meant not
we
anymore
let
because that.
everybody in.
I thought you meant not anymore
Because we
because that
let
lodge had the
everybody in.
merge. Because it did.
No.
It's a
Because
county
we let
seat without a
anybody
Masonic
in,
lodge.
and now there's nobody there that can afford to pay for the lodge.
Mm-hmm. And granted, but Rotary, when you go there, it's not a business meeting. You go there, there's dinner, and there's an educational program.
It's always about improving yourself, always, because improving your business improves the community.
Yeah,
and they know that. That's the goal.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah. I mean, but they'll still do the same thing every other organization. Every other organization will do. Is if you go to one of those meetings, you sit by the old timers. Inevitably, you'll hear how there used to be 2 or 3 times as many people at the meetings. So that's one thing that's universal. But the thing is, even if you just looked at the men that were there, that's still more people showing up than the Masonic lodge they had. And so my point is, like, we have to get out of this cheap mentality, and I guess really that also shows the value of having education and actual value at the meetings. Because I've been at Lions Club meetings where there is no education and there's no food, and it's really just kind of a business meeting, and it's a lot like a Masonic lodge, except men and women. And so it's there's 2 ways to run an organization, guys, and if you just run it like a dead, like it's just this, there's no other way to describe it. Just like this dead ship with no sails, just sailing straight towards disaster, and you have no value being offered at the meetings at all. I mean, there's no lodge that has ever become successful and became prosperous by running like that, ever. And if you're running the same way, if you have the same dues and the same endowments, and we're doing the same kind of, we're living off fundraisers, and we're doing the same crap as every other dying lodge around us, and we're just wondering, it's easy to say, oh, the organization must be dying. Well, no, you're all collectively marching to the same drum, and that's why it seems like that, because you're all going to have the same fate because you're doing the same things. But yeah, so enough of that. Unless someone had thoughts. Otherwise, I want to talk, shift it to dues. But Jeff, did you raise your hand? No? Anyone have thoughts? I will say.
Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I can't see everybody. I've just been jumping in without even thinking about everybody else that's on.
Oh, it's all good.
Sorry.
Tom, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
You look different.
I don't know why.
You look. Yeah,
Man, he's got a lot of fur on his face.
Well, he looks like he's almost a year older. Is something?
Probably.
Do you have a birthday coming up or something?
Yeah, I have one coming up shortly.
Shortly? When? Today?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Oh, that explains it. Yeah, you had a few more gray hairs than last time I saw.
Yeah. I turned 44.
44? No, you don't. What?
Oh my gosh.
It's been a hard life. What can I say?
No, I think I'm like trying to think here, what is the disconnect? Because it seems like there's a few brothers that have this figured out. They're on this call. And I mean, I'm still a baby in this, but I recognized it very early on. So I don't know where the disconnect is. If maybe it's in when we're doing our investigations, that we're not looking for those type of people that are looking for what we think it should be. Because it seems like we're bringing in quite a few guys that are in it for what I call the social aspect of it. And they just show up once a month, and they really don't want to have anything to do other than that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know where the disconnect is, unless we just need to find more people that think like us. But like I said, that's the age old question. What do you do?
Yeah, that is yeah. I agree. What do? You can educate. Educate and educate, but like I said, we've been doing this almost 9 years, and it feels sometimes like it's just falling on deaf ears. Byron, you just turned on your mic. You got something?
Yeah. I was just gonna say real quick that I think maybe the disconnect in our investigations is that we're not asking these guys the right questions. Like Tom brought up, a lot of folks are still coming in for the social aspect. And I'm sure that there are even a certain number of guys that are coming in looking for the fellowship aspect that kind of led to the boom in masonry back in the 40s and the 50s. But the simple truth is the longevity that we're that we're needing isn't coming from either of those places. It's going to be coming from finding guys who are wanting that education. It's going to be the better man. And if we miss the boat on finding those guys, well, boys, we missed the boat.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Any more thoughts on that? Okay. Shifting into dues, we're just
Hey, I'll add something.
go for it. Let's hear
An
it.
interesting conversation that I had with some older Masons recently. Both of them are district deputies this year, and we were talking about lodges and just the same thing. Well, these, all the lodges doing the same thing. And one of them made an interesting statement, which then we all challenged each other about, is that I can't do what I want to do at my home lodge because I'm members of all these other lodges that we're trying to keep open.
Yes.
And it's the same kind of thing, right?
That is a huge one
Yep.
right there. That is a huge one.
And lodges can't charge what they should charge because people are paying $100 here, $100 there, $100 here for trying to prop
right.
up
So
these dying
in a
lodges.
scenario, so I'm a member of 5 lodges. So let's say that so let's say that I wasn't a member of 5 lodges. Let's say I'm a member of 1, and then I spent the same amount of money in the 1 as opposed to the 5, which is what we're all saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we've all sat in a lodge where somebody was like, "Oh man, if you join, we could really use your help." And and I have said no, and we'll continue to say no. But I think that's a big part of it too, right? Because at the end of the day, you're right. There are very few lodges that are independently wealthy, right? Because I don't think the guys that started these lodges ever considered that we would be talking on a screen in 2025, almost 2026. And so it's not sustained, so we're not sustaining, right? We're all I say all, lots of lodges are a bad windstorm, a freak fire away from not existing.
Yeah, because they don't have insurance either.
Right. Well, yeah, and let's not talk about that. But anyway, no, I think it's all relevant. And it all does come back to money and activity. So just my 2 cents.
No, and
no pun intended.
Well, like was pointed out, like you're 100% right. That's one of the big problems is that we are holding all of these lodges afloat with these mass memberships, and it's all kind of arbitrary, right? If there's a lodge and there's a town and the town is practically non-existent, or the town just cannot support that lodge, it kind of just needs natural selection needs to happen. If this lodge has 50 active members and they're all dues paying, but they're spread all over the county to these that only have like 5 or 6 or just barely enough to open, well, my effort in my dues and my resources would be better suited to the healthy lodge. And it sounds kind of callous, but they're going to, here's the thing. These lodges are going to demise either way. If a community can't support a lodge, or if a lodge just look like Chalk Mountain. Chalk Mountain doesn't really have a local community. It's kind of out in the middle of nowhere, but it has enough people that are willing to travel to it because it has that value, that rustic, historic value that it offers for doing these lamplight meetings and stuff. If your lodges don't have that, then it has to be what it has to be, because what's happening is it's like it's like you're trying to hold everybody else afloat, but they're pulling you down at the same time. If that makes sense. Like I'm trying to keep everybody from drowning, but at the same time, we're all collectively sinking because we're all holding on to each other. And I'm not saying let anybody drown, nothing like that, but like you kind of have to let go sometimes. And I can help people better if I can get air and if I can take care of myself, because once you have a healthy lodge and it's able to charge what it should be charging, as far as dues, as far as endowments, as far as degree fees and all that, then it can start looking at other places and helping. But if from the get-go we're just collectively pulling each other down, that's not good. Hey Brad, I was like, who's talking in chat? But let's talk a little bit about dues since that was brought up. If when I first joined, dues at my lodge, and granted this was like 20 years ago, were like $50 a year. It was just it's ridiculous. And there's still lodges that charge the bare minimum. One of my lodges was actually charging about $50 a year until recently, and I pushed to raise the dues, and from 50 to 100, I wanted to raise it more, but I realized it wasn't going to happen. And we had people standing up. If I have to choose between paying $130 a year or taking care of my family, I can't be a Mason. You have to charge what you have to charge to keep your doors open. You cannot rely solely on fish fries and slinging green beans and all these things to keep the doors open. Now, as brothers, if there's a brother Mason and he sincerely can't pay dues, that's where we pass the hat, or one of us just discreetly slips a check to the secretary and covers it for him. But your dues need to be high enough that you know that based off how many dues paying members you have and what the average operating cost is of the lodge that year. And what I mean by that is, if you look, whenever you do your audits every year, and if you look at the last 3 years, how much did it cost to operate this lodge on average? So look at the numbers for each year, add them together, divide by 3, and our dues need to be at least high enough to cover this cost. And that's excluding like one-offs, like, well, this year was higher because our air conditioning went out, or we had to replace the hot water heater this year. You can exclude that stuff because that's one-offs and it's going to throw off your data. But that's what your dues need to be. They need to be set at that. And you need to look at them pretty regularly, because if you don't change your dues, I mean, inflation on average is about 3%. So if you don't change your dues in 3 years, well, your income's down 10%, roughly. So
well, your dues should account for that. Let's back up for a second.
Are you at home now?
Yes.
Oh,
okay. Your dues should account for. Yes. So AI got me home safely. I did not die, depending on that car to drive me home. Your dues.
Child in the back seat.
Yeah, with a sleeping child in the back seat. I'm glad y'all enjoyed that. If you're charging enough in dues, that hot water heater or air conditioner is not going to be a big deal, because you're going to be putting a percentage away every year from those dues towards your building fund, and it's going to take care of your maintenance and things like that. So I don't know. I still believe that the most important thing that we ought to take with us is what Jeff was saying, and that is, we're members of too many lodges.
And
if we weren't, we could afford the lodges that we belong to.
There's a really good question in chat about that.
Should belong to,
Dennis. His brother Naylor. How much does it help a lodge and the Grand Lodge for us to plural with other lodges? And I'll tell you this. It might not.
In my opinion, it doesn't.
Well, it might help Grand Lodge.
Oh, it helps Grand
Lodge.
Yeah,
because they're getting per capita on one guy multiple times.
Yeah. It's a classic business trick. How can I want to charge a person? It's like why we do subscriptions for so many things now instead of like a one-time fee. Like, I could hit them once with a per capita, or I could encourage them to join 3, 4, 5 of the lodges, and I'll get $200, $250 a year off these guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I used to have that Photoshop CD that I carried with me for 10 years, and now I'm paying monthly for my Photoshop, so that I can do my imaging and stuff.
Oh, because you can't use the CD anymore?
No.
Oh, those bat rastards.
Well, even printers, like if you want a printer, you have to pay a lot of them. You have to pay for a subscription and for them to send you new inks and stuff like that. There's even some printers that charge you by what you print in your own house. It's crazy, but that's just the way things have gone now. But yeah, so that's the short and sweet of dues. I think is if they're not high enough to cover the operating costs of your lodge, you need to really reconsider what you're doing. Fundraisers are not meant to operate your lodge, man.
No, fundraisers are meant to be fundraisers for special projects.
Yes, if I am selling food to keep my lights open, I'm a restaurant, man. It's a restaurant. You're a fish and chips restaurant. Congratulations. And it's just it's there's no way around it. There's really no way around it. And like my and I'll tell you, I'll be completely like transparent. One of my lodges, I did the math, and we'd have to pay like $1,000 a year per member to keep that open. Because, yeah, it's time to look for another building.
Well,
It's time to look for another place.
this is where mergers make sense.
Yeah.
And I say this because, like, we have a lodge. Two of the lodges I belong to in Corpus. If we sold one of the buildings, we would collect probably $400,000 from that lodge. If we sold the other one, it would be roughly $500,000 to $600,000 from that lodge. And if we were to merge those two lodges together, we could sell one of those buildings and then put that money into a fund that would pay us perpetually every year, and we could run our lodge with those funds in the building that we're in, whichever one that ends up being, and we could, essentially make it. But instead, you've got too many egos in the way, and people aren't willing to merge. And okay, so let's take away the ego factor, because sometimes it's just heartstrings. Because I was raised in this lodge, I want to see that lodge stay open. Well, I get it, but if you're the only one that wants to see that lodge stay open, if you're not willing to put your money where your mouth is, then obviously you got to make a hard decision. But go with the best building that's in the best shape, and then sell the other building, and then put it towards it. And even if that lodge didn't want to merge with the other lodge because they don't want that membership, because obviously if you let your membership die down that bad, then maybe there's a cancer in that lodge. So the other lodge may not want you to be there, right? So if that's not possible, then sell that building and rent from the other lodge for the next 50 years, because you'll have that money. You'll have that $500,000. You can have it put away in your nest egg, just like with the other proposal, except instead, you rent a building or rent from that other lodge when you want to use the building for Freemasonry. And otherwise, have your other events somewhere else, like at a nice ballroom or something. You could really do a lot more if we could do a lot more. I got to stop saying you, because it's like I'm talking down to everybody, and I don't mean to, but we could do a lot more if we would think in those lines and start helping each other and stop being the crabs that are holding the other crabs down.
Well, it's really my lodge versus my fraternity. It needs
my brotherhood.
My brotherhood.
Stop calling it a fraternity too, because that diminishes the value in what we are part of also.
What does fraternity mean? I know what you get at though, but but no, you're right though.
I'm gonna tell you that I don't think that King Solomon called it a fraternity. I don't think that when Aaron was put in the position he was put into a fraternity. He wasn't. He was put into a brotherhood. And if anybody knows the ritual, which and I know because we've discussed this, then that we're a part of a brotherhood and not a fraternity.
Yeah.
The fraternal aspect comes for our tax purposes, and that's why we are labeled a fraternity.
Well, I was just saying it's synonymous, but I also realize that fraternity has a bad rap because of college and stuff. So
because of people like you,
possibly, But
Sorry,
damn, I had a
guys,
whole
I
point I was
digress.
going to make too, and I got sidetracked with the whole fraternity thing.
Yep. You shouldn't have said that,
I
man.
know.
You shouldn't have tried to contradict me.
Probably not.
Well, then I got one. Let me offer real quick, and it's just a short, kind of an aside, really. You know, if you are one of those lodges, or you belong to one of those lodges that would be better off selling their property and then renting from another lodge, remember the other upside to that is you're helping that other lodge.
Mm-hmm.
You know, make their system or their situation a little more solvent. So, you know, it's another upside to, you know, you don't have to consolidate, you don't have to merge, but if you share facilities, you share expenses, and that makes things easier on everyone all the way around.
Yeah, and you totally reminded me what I was going to say, so thanks for that. But yeah, you're 100% right. No, and that's kind of what I was saying, where I was going with the whole brotherhood versus my lodge kind of mentality, is that when it's, if we worry about what's best for our lodge, my lodge, then we get kind of selfish, and the egos kind of start jumping in. But if we want to do what's best for our brotherhood, we might realize it's better for us to have 3 or 4 lodges in one building than it would be for us to have. And so when you have these situations where you have these districts and you have maybe one healthy lodge and 2 or 3 others that are being held afloat by everybody else, it would be in the egos. The egos are the problem, because I've run into this, because I've had this conversation before. It's like, there only needs to be 1 or 2 lodges in this district, and everybody, they're like, well, it should be our lodge. Because then everybody's like, well, it should be our lodge. That's the only one. Never mind, you haven't had enough people show up to open in 3 months. You should be the one that has people. But we have to get, if you just go to Oklahoma, you don't have to drive far. Oklahoma, if their lodges, a lot of them will have 2 or 3, 4 lodges that meet in the same building. And so it's not.
Well, you can go to Lubbock and see the same thing. They all use the Scottish Rite building.
Good.
And we have several lodges in our building in San Antonio for that very purpose. And back in the day, there were 4 different lodges that met in our Scottish Rite building. And I mean, I don't know why people don't consider that today.
Yeah. Brad, quit stirring the pot. he's
But, you know,
there's
go ahead.
there's a comment from Brother Naylor in the chat that says, the monitor calls it a fraternity in a few places. And then Brother Hoff's over here saying, my monitor still has plastic on it though. So trying to.
Well, you know, you can jump into semantics all you want to, Brother Naylor. That's fine. I choose to look at the ritual, because that's what we're based off of, not just a monitor. The ritual goes back a lot earlier than what that monitor was written on. So I'm going to go based off of that, and you can go based off of whatever you want to. And that's part of the problem with our issue today as well, is we have people with different opinions on what Freemasonry actually is. A lot of people that have not really researched what they joined, what they're a part of. And I'm not saying that Brother Naylor did or didn't. I'm just saying that, you know, if we focused more on where we come from, then we might be a little bit more interested in finding a solution for where we are today. I don't know. Call me silly. Just seems like those traditions might mean something.
Yeah. Well,
one of the things I was going to say though on the idea of sharing a building instead of just merging is, you know, there's success stories all over the place with different lodges that share a building. Like, take for instance, Triune and Lonnie Irvin Lodge. They share a building. Triune moved into the Lonnie Irvin Lodge, and they have a board that takes care of the building as a collective. You know, members from both lodges are part of that board, and they take care of the building, and it's a it's a joint effort, and it's not put on one or the other. And nobody's getting, a lot of rent off of the other, but they're both contributing to the building fund equally. And it's a very good situation the way it works out. I wish that more lodges could look at doing something like that. And I know it's tough for, areas like mine in Goliad. I mean, it's just not possible. Every place is 30 minutes away, but even still, there's lodges where we've got 10 guys that are going around supporting all the lodges within an hour radius of where Goliad is.
Yeah.
And
when you visit two or
it
three
just
different
depletes our
lodges,
resources.
if you can visit 2 or 3 lodges in your district, and the only thing that's different is the location, otherwise it's the same people, something's wrong. There's a problem. That's a red flag right there.
That's why you have to join those lodges outside of your district. So you see the same people at different right. So I go see these people at this lodge and I go see these people at this lodge. I don't join that lodge because that's the same people that I would see if I went there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, you're
yeah, and you can learn from and you can learn more that way by doing that too.
Well, that's
one thing
why
that one it actually our senior warden in Flatonia brought it up at the December meeting that we needed to figure out where the lodge is going to go here over the next few years because it's unfortunately an older population. I'm the youngest guy in the room by some 15 to 20 years at 99% of the meetings. And I floated the idea, and it wasn't met with a bunch of resistance, was about trying to take one of these lodges around here that's dying on the vine and make it a daylight lodge, because that presents a problem for a lot of the older brothers as well, is just the ability to get to lodge. And I don't think they had thought of that, so maybe that's a way to, if you could, we'll see where the conversation goes, but that, I think, if we could get some support behind that, that might help too, because then guys wouldn't feel like they were giving up everything if they were, revitalizing an existing lodge by converting it to a daylight.
Well, I don't disagree. I think what we're getting into here is the value proposition, or the what you charge versus the actual value itself. And what you're talking about is if every lodge is doing the same thing, there's no value, there's no differentiation. And so when you do have a lodge, it's like, okay, we'll be the one that does like a daylight lodge. And then another lodge is like, okay, well, we'll do like lamplight or something, if there's some variety and there's some different options, then sure. Why would you not, like, if I enjoy my lodge and I love my lodge, but this lodge is doing something very different, then yeah, I could see why you could justify being a dual member there, because this is what my lodge does, right? But like if I wanted to I'll just use Chalk Mountain again. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Chalk Mountain, but they're like a lamplight. They don't have AC. That's appealing for some reason for some people, but they don't have AC and it's lamplight and stuff. Yeah, if I was into that kind of thing, I would join Chalk Mountain and keep my membership here, because I'm not going to expect my lodge to turn off their AC and start using lamps, right? But there has to be that value, that differentiation. Well, I like that. Any more thoughts on dues?
Excuse me. I had so when I was serving in the East last year, I had a heck of a time trying to convince everybody why all the stuff you guys were saying about why our dues are set at why they're supposed to be set where they're set. And I, as worshipful master, I could have just brought it up for a vote to, go ahead and raise the dues. But I was like, okay, I'm gonna speak on this for 3 months, and I'm gonna call every member of the lodge and let them know what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. I sent them all the information of, all the research I did of why everybody else sets their lodge and sets their dues at where they set it at. Brother Chris Galloway wrote a book called Leading from the East, where he breaks it down like really, really well. And that was the main book that I used as to why I set my dues the way I set it for my lodge, which was double the amount of what we were paying. Because basically, after all the money and income that we had, it was $2,000 or $3,000 short of just paying our light bill, our per capita, and our insurance, which is operating cost. And I'm like, well, if we double the dues, that'll put us just barely into the black. Then everything we're actually putting money in the bank account rather than going in the negative every year. And for whatever reason, I had several past masters vote against it, and that was all that voted against it was past masters, which kind of blew me away. But it did pass.
That's another. Go ahead.
Well, so it did pass, and that was a win for us because it put us on the right track for about 3 years. But in about 3 years, that'll be obsolete again.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing that we don't see enough in our situation today is the importance of the past master. I'm only a past master of one lodge, and that's Goliad 94. I had a great year. I don't need to be a master of any other lodge. Not interested. With that being said, if something is to go south at Goliad 94, I can assure you, as long as I'm drawing breath in my body, Goliad 94 is not going to go under because I'm a past master of Goliad 94. And I think that's a problem that we have with a lot of these plural memberships. Everybody's masters of all these lodges as well, and past master just becomes another thing. It's as prevalent. Every plural lodge is every past master. You're a past master of every plural lodge you're a member of, and then there's no sanctity in being a past master anymore, except for the fact that you have a vote, and you still only get one vote at Grand Lodge because you were made a past master that first time. But the reality is that as a past master, it is still my job to take care of Goliad 94, and I will. And I just don't think that we see that enough either. I think it's just as diluted from our situation of trying to support ourselves with plural memberships.
Yeah.
Just another thought.
Just real quick, one of the other things that keeps coming into my mind when we're talking about dues and how we need to set it up is, okay, and maybe it's just me being an old dude kind of thing, but it was, beat into my head, or they attempted to beat into my head, my parents, that, a certain portion of my income needed to be set aside in savings for a rainy day or an emergency or something like that. And lodges should be operating absolutely on that same mindset. You should be taking in enough in dues to create a rainy day fund so that, I don't know, when your air conditioner dies, or your water heater, or your elevator, or your parking lot needs to be repaved, or whatever comes up, you've got the monies to do that thing. And you're not going to do that on endowed memberships at the lowest possible level and $50 a year dues. I mean, there's just no way to avoid that conversation anymore. And I don't know why it is that more lodges are not having that conversation now.
Well, there's some
that's an interesting point. Go ahead.
I was just going to comment quickly.
Jump right in after you.
There's some that think because we're a nonprofit that we can't have money. Like you can have a certain amount. They don't seem to know what they think it is. But
have you ever seen what kind of money they pay the Goodwill director at the national level? That's a nonprofit too. Those guys got more money than most people.
I don't disagree. We go say
that's why I like the Salvation.
What you got, Dennis?
Well, never mind. I got off thinking about something else now, so it'll come back to me. Give me a minute. I've had a couple scotches tonight already.
You pulled the justice.
Well, you said something. You started saying something about, I think, Salvation Army.
Oh no, I know Salvation Army does pays their CEO less,
Man,
but
the last thing you need, Dennis, is a self-driving
L-
vehicle with all those
less
scotches.
than
No,
less than what though? Is Salvation paying their executive director less than, oh, I don't know, Elon Musk?
oh yeah,
Okay, but I bet he's getting paid a whole lot
Salvation
more
Army,
than Joe Schmuckatelli.
Salvation Army. The last now it's been several years, but he used to only get $100,000 a year. This was about 10 years ago, and they had a house for him to live in. That was the CEO of the Salvation Army. The CEO of Goodwill was making like $600,000 a year or something like that.
wow.
But anyways, that's
They don't even source their products; it just comes to them. What a sweet
Right.
deal. All
right.
right, well
Right.
let's move on. The next thing I wanted to address tonight was endowments, which is kind of what spurred the whole conversation, spurred this conversation we're having tonight also. Um, so I'll just lay out my thoughts and we could talk. So current Grand Ledge law is the returns are 5% of the endowments. So
Give or take, yes.
give or take. And so what that means is for every $100 you buy, okay, the minimum endowment you could buy is $500. For every $100 unit, that's 5%, so it's $5. So at a $500 endowment is about $25 in returns. And that's the $500 minimum that a lot of lodges are still at. What's per capita? Does anybody know?
2750.
So right off the bat, if your members are endowed, you're losing money because
If
it's
you're
not.
not getting 750 for an endowment each for each person, then you're not covering your per capita.
No, granted, it's
Wait a minute, am I doing that math right? Is that 3250 per? That's per capita?
Per capita is 2750.
Yeah, 2750.
2750.
Yeah.
Okay, so each lodge is losing $2.50 per endowed member at the lowest level.
Yes, if there's two ways you can look at it, and it really just
No,
depends on how you
no,
want to do the math.
$600 is what you need to pay, just pay per capita.
Okay.
$600 endowment.
So if your dues are $100, you could say, well, I'm losing $2.50 because I'm paying the difference with the per capita. Or you could say, look, I'm losing like $102.50 because we're not getting the dues we would have got, and I'm paying extra
And
to cover
that's
the
what
cost.
nobody calculates.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the reason that I say that is because if you're doing it right, and if you're saying based off our dues paying members, this is what we need to charge. You're taking into account how many dues paying members you have in your cost. So you're not just losing $2.50, you're losing everything you accounted for, which is that $100 or $200 or whatever it is. And so the way it works out mathematically, and one of the brothers, I won't name his name, but he's like, "Oh, that sounds really harsh." It is harsh, man. It's math though, and math doesn't care about your feelings. If you want to set your endowment, say my dues are $200. What I should be thinking is basically what happens is when you buy an endowment, you're locking in that price for the rest of your Masonic life. So you're paying basically what you should be doing is I'm paying $200 dues for the next 20 years right now. And what that does is that if I do, basically it's times 20. Whatever my dues are times 20. If I set that as my endowment, then whatever the returns are every year will be pretty close to what the dues would have been anyway. So because excuse me a second, pardon me, if I charge 20 times my dues.
That was disgusting.
Did you hear that? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I thought I got away. But anyway, yeah. So my returns will be $200. That's how it has to work out mathematically. What you got, Tom?
My main question was, I thought about that today, and I got a calculator out, and I looked at our home lodge where it's $1,000. And when I use the calculator, unless it's broke, that endowment should be 4,000.
It should.
So we're only really on our current endowment, we're only basically doing 9 months of dues.
I'll say the good news is, because remember I told you earlier that Masons are cheap. Once you get into $1,000, you're not going to see a lot of people that are going to endow anyway. But yeah, it still doesn't mean that they won't. And you're absolutely right. It should be much more. Whoa, we got a wild Scott Bratson has appeared. What's up, buddy?
You just saw that?
He just now popped up. Has he been here the whole time?
Yes.
What? He just now popped. Did somebody leave?
No,
he just now popped up where I could see him.
No, but he's been here for a while. He's been commenting.
Yeah, you haven't been looking at the chat.
No, I have not. I've been looking at the YouTube. Hold on, my bad.
You know, a lot of
the
lot of the issue is the issue with our mindset today as consumers. You know, Byron was talking about earlier the fact that the way that we were taught is that you put away a certain amount of money, and then that way you have enough for those broken items as they come along. Hell, it used to be that way just for health costs. It was that way for your dentist, for your health. Anything that you had to pay for, it came out of your pocket. You didn't have insurance, you didn't have all this other stuff. But we've been shaped into this consumer mode to where we think that we should be able to pay a fraction and get the benefit of the whole, right? Well, and that also goes along with the management of lodge finances. So in today's age, there are a lot of people that will live their life paycheck to paycheck. Even people that are making really good money are living paycheck to paycheck. And then if that AC breaks, they got to break out the credit card. It's the credit card mentality, right? And so what happens is when the lodge starts trucking along and they're going with $100 dues, and that's double what they paid last year, right? So they're paying $100 dues, which is double what they paid last year. But then the AC breaks. Then what are they going to do? They're going to look for the credit card Mason. They're going to look to the guy that can afford that chunk of change, and they're going to ask him for the money because nobody else wants to foot the bill. And I think that's where I made the statement earlier that we should have guarded the West Gate a little bit better in the beginning. We wouldn't have that situation. I think that's where that plays in.
I wonder if we just, whenever we had people visiting, if we just like, okay, well, you need to cover your own dinner for like the first few months. Like, are you willing to at least cover your own dinner? It'd be like, it's $10. It's a $10 plate. And
did you guys not cover your own dinner when you were visiting the lodges you were considering petitioning?
No,
man, I've been paying more than my share the whole time.
That was part of the deal. You know, I got the first one free.
Well,
when I very first showed up. But then after that, I had to throw $5 in the kitty along with everybody else.
Well,
and that was just for a cruddy ham sandwich and some potato chips and some Oreos.
Well, often when I'm speaking from experience, when you try to put money in the kitty, they stop you. They won't let you. But like I think that's how it should be. Like $10.
As if they're going to pay for it for them.
Yeah, and then you kind of they cover it for you. So like moving on, you're like, well, maybe they'll just cover it for me this time. But just like if you're going to visit, it's $10 for dinner, so just be ready. And if they're like, well, I can't really afford that. Well, red flag.
Keeping your ass at home.
Red flag. Or if someone's covering it for them, like, well, their dad's coming. Their dad's bringing them. Well, dad covers it. Oh, no, I don't know about that. That's should be a red flag. But yeah, that's where I'm at on endowments, and it is pretty straightforward. Endowments aren't cheap. They never were supposed to be cheap. And even at $500, which is dirt cheap today, when the inception of the program came around, $500 was 10 to 15 times
big money.
It was big money. It was,
and here's the thing, like inflation, it has not kept up.
Well, for the longest time,
because of inflation, it hasn't kept up. Money is not static. And Scott brings up a good point here. we're going to have a whole bunch of more funerals before all of these $500 endowment memberships start making a difference for the individual lodge.
It takes longer. Robert Marshall pointed out earlier on Facebook that it takes like 100 years for that to start breaking even, and I would argue it even takes longer because you're losing. Like if you want to use the math I used earlier, you're losing the dues on this guy every year, and so if he lives 30 years and
you're losing 10 years of dues at your 20-year model,
and then you're looking at inflation, and so by the time it starts to break even, you're looking at getting like $1 a year basically.
Right. And that's why we have that legacy builders thing for the guys who are out there who already have those cheap endowments, and giving them the opportunity to get a little recognition for adding to those cheap endowments and making them no longer a burden on their local lodge, at least in the short term, no longer a burden.
Yeah. And like Scott pointed out, I hit a good point. Where was it? Let me find it again. Bear with me a second. Or a lodge makes its own investment fund instead of handing it to Grand Lodge. The only issue with that is you still owe dues. Like if you do the official authorized endowment program, you don't legally have to pay anything for the rest of your Masonic career. Where if a lodge just does its own fund, I mean that's great, and I think a lodge should do that. But you're still.
And there are lodges that do.
Yeah.
But they're the lodges that have been forward thinking enough to keep their dues at a level that allows them to set aside that rainy day money, and in addition to set aside money that will go into an investment account that pays that lodge back then, a portion or all or more than what they need to operate on a yearly basis.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Ready to move on? Let's talk.
Sure.
Let's talk quickly about degree fees. And we had a really great guest on here a few months ago, Brother Zach Haston, and he was sharing data about degree fees, and really the magic number is it's about $300. About $300. Once it's, and the data for that he was, and I would encourage anyone to go back and look for it. I think it was the last one he was on our show with, but the data shows there's no decrease in new members up to $300 for degree fees. And then right around then you start seeing that starts to diminish a little bit. But yeah, $300 degree fees. That's what it should be, because they're not just getting a degree. They're getting membership for basically a year, right? Because if you go longer than a year, you have to get voted to be in, there's a whole process if you go too long in a certain degree. So you're basically paying a degree for that whole year. Dues for that whole year, but this should also set high enough so you're getting, because we give people things like Bibles and aprons and monitors. If a lodge is doing a good job, they're getting bylaws. There should be a good meal. These are all things that should be covered. And since this is your degree, you should be covering it. And so $300 degree fees. And the other benefit of higher degree fees is if someone just has a casual interest, they're just kind of, Yes, I'll get to that. That's a great point. I guess I'll cover it now because I forgot what I was going to say now. but that also means, like, if I'm charging $300 for dues, I know what I was going to say. It discourages this casual interest. Like if I want to just check it out and see if I like it, no, this isn't for you. I mean, it's $300 for a degree. But also that means it puts a little pressure on us, because that means we need to do the best job we can with our degrees. And I've seen some that are phoned in, and I was disgusted with, and we can't do that. You can't do that if you're going to charge $300 for a degree, and you're not practicing, and you don't have the team, and people don't know their work. That's a problem, man. That is a huge problem. But the benefits to putting the work in charging extra, so that you get the commitment from these people, and you can actually provide them with nice things, and have a good meal. It is worth the trouble, in my opinion.
Well, I've told all of y'all that we changed hours at OSO to where we're basically, for all 3 degrees, it's $1,000. And in doing that, we're able to, for the master's degree, we're able to cater in a festive board at the end of that master's degree. And that way there's something of real value for not only the member that, just became a master mason, but for all the participants in that degree and all those who showed up for it, we're able to cater in that meal. I think that, when you start looking at what you can bring to the table, um, it's easier to put a higher value on it like that. I mean, right now we're at the point to where um, one of the DIs that was at our last master's degree said, guys, y'all would have done great with a graded degree. You need to do that next year. And so that's the goal, is that next year we're going to do graded degrees at OSO, and we can do it all in house with our own membership. We don't have to go out to, seeking from other people.
Doesn't that count towards Vanguard also if you do graded degree?
It does, but that's not why we're doing it. We made a conscious decision that we were going to make sure that our ritual was excellent, and so that we can, present the few things that we have to offer that all the other animal clubs, can't offer, are good.
Mm-hmm.
If you go into a place that they that doesn't know what they're even there for, then what makes it a place where you would want to invest those higher dues or the higher endowment or anything like that? But when you're a part of something where everybody holds each other to a certain standard, and we expect that education, we expect that better ritual, we expect that better participation from our membership, I don't know, man. It's just something that works.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you find it. I think that that's something that you're finding in all of the bigger lodges in the bigger towns that are making 20 Masons a year. That's what you're finding is the same thing, and they're charging the same kind of money. Zach is a member of Arlington Lodge, and they're right up there with those degree fees and the lodge dues. And the endowments. They're up there. They're not the $500 endowments that we're talking about and the $100 dues that we're talking about. It's serious change that people are investing in it, and that's one of the biggest lodges out there. Same thing with Hillcrest. Look at that picture behind Brad Hoff right now. That's Hillcrest Lodge right there, and that's during their equinox celebration, which they're going to have they just had it, didn't they?
Had it Friday night.
Damn it, I missed it.
Winter Solstice Lodge.
If you want to talk about a lodge that was a success from a merger, that's Hillcrest right there.
Yeah, exactly. It can be done. People just have to care enough to do it.
I'd really like to circle back for just a sec.
Go ahead.
If we're going to, I'm not saying if. $1,000 for all 3 degrees to pay for a catered meal at the end of the third is all well and good, but why not go ahead and start it off for that new master with a damn fine educational presentation during that festive board?
Well, we do it during the festive board, but we have a full package. They're not just paying for that festive board.
Oh, okay.
They're paying for their membership of our lodge. And our lodge offers all those things that none of these other lodges around us offer within 100 miles. And so they're getting something they will not get anywhere else within 100 miles. Easy.
Cool. That's all I wanted to bring up. It's just, because we have, I don't know, it's just my own personal theory. I'm not speaking on or to anybody else's lodge. I'm not speaking to anybody else's, just my personal feelings. I feel like when Masonry came to the U.S., it was akin to the Royal Society, but not on a scientific level, on a sociological level, where it was an opportunity for like-minded men to get together and figure out how to improve their communities, how to improve themselves, how to improve the world at large. And we lost that a long time ago, nearly 100 years ago. And the way we're going to bring it back is to go out there, grab it by the horns, and drag it, kicking and screaming, back into our lodges.
And that's what it has to be. At this point, it has to be kicking and screaming. We have to get kind of forceful with it, and that's.
Well, we just have to have a plan and follow through with it. So, we raised our dues this past year to $150 a year at OSO, even though we have enough money to pay for all of our activities throughout the year, every year. We have that because we have the money in the bank, and we get dividends to where it pays for our activities. It pays for our maintenance, our upkeep. It pays for everything, down to getting our yard mowed every other week. It pays for everything. But we went ahead and raised the dues, and we had a couple of older brothers, comment on it and say that, well, they're just going to have to drop out because they weren't going to be able to pay that. And we said, well, that's why we're raising them, is so that the younger guys can afford to carry you along. You've been a Mason long enough. You don't deserve to be left behind. We got you. We are our brother's keeper, and we're going to take care of you. And we're able to do that because we're paying it forward, or we're paying it back from our newer members. Our younger members are paying it back to our older members. Mm-hmm. So it evens out the coffers.
Like that.
Go ahead, Byron.
So did you guys use some sort of a longevity formula to give these older Masons who have been there for a while and have not endowed the opportunity to continue to pay their whatever agreed upon dues are for the remainder of their Masonic career, while the younger guys, the guys that are coming in now, are going to pay the elevated rate?
Legally, you can't do that.
Right. So okay. What we're doing is we're making them exempt, which we can do that. And then if they want to make a donation, they're more than able to make a donation at whatever rate they want to. And if they want to pay that old $50 rate for the rest of their lives, then they can if they want to, but they're not obligated to, because we're making them exempt. But the younger guys, we're not making them exempt because they're not in distress situations right now. They're not.
I'm asking for the benefit of my lodges back home.
Yeah, they're not in.
Is this something that I can take to them and go, hey, this is a way that we can maybe avoid having to dig ourselves out of a deep, deep hole and just make it a deep hole.
Right. And that's what we were thinking. And some guys said, oh, well, we're going to lose all our members. Well, we only had, we're in a lodge. Okay. So we already have enough to pay our bills throughout the year. Right? And then on top of that, we already have enough endowments that more than pay for, they double what our per capita is. So we make money on our endowments as well. So even by losing that money from even if nobody else had to pay dues, we would be just fine.
Okay.
But for the principle of it, of putting money away and being good stewards of our finances, we're putting money away for if the AC breaks or if we need to fix something. Hell, right now I'm the one that's charged with revamping our lodge so that we can have the candlesticks and we're going to LED lighting and new sound and all kinds of stuff to enhance our initiatic experience for our brothers. So we're able to use those dues for stuff like that, to where, because all the other bills are paid, so the dues can be used for fun money to come up with new ideas. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't break us. We just do something else. If we plan accordingly, if we have a plan and follow the plan, then it can work out. And if more lodges would think about it sooner than later, then they could be in the same situation.
We have to get out of this mentality where we have to be apologetic about dues, and we also have to get out of this mentality that we should only charge what we absolutely have to at the bare minimum. And here's why I say this. And you can go back. It's the same episode with Brother Haston. We talked about these lodges. There are lodges out there that they're just bankrolled. Like they have like a oil well somewhere on their property, or by what, for whatever reason, they're getting fat checks, and they don't need to charge more than minimum dues. And so they don't. And then you go to the meeting and there's no one showing up. Why? Because there's no buy-in. The lodge is filthy rich, but there's no buy-in because I pay the minimum, and if I don't show up, who cares? And so it's not about, you shouldn't look at how much money the lodge has. You should look at what it needs to operate at a minimum, regardless of how much a lodge has. And the reason for that is if I'm paying $365 a year to be a member of a lodge, I'm there every time that door's open because I'm paying to be there that day. If I'm just paying $50, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like if I don't have to go, it's inconvenient. Maybe I just won't go. Maybe there's something more interesting on TV. I might not go. And you see that, like there's a football game or just something, and there's like any reason not to go. Like, well, I'm just not going to go. So my point is, charge what your lodge is worth. Charge the minimal you have to operate, and then you got to ask yourself, what is the lodge really worth, though? Is it worth just the minimum, or are we doing something a little bit better?
Well, let me say this also, just to, number one, first, if nobody saw what Scott said earlier about San Marcos Lodge, you should definitely attend. If you never have, you need to go. But to what you're saying, as far as the value in the lodge, we have to think of it as, the junior executives for Fortune 500 companies. They go in an internship before they ever really make any money. They're serving that corporation for a long time before, 1, 2, 3 years, sometimes 5 years before they really get a break and they get to start making a decent living in that corporation. So ultimately, we have to invest in our lodges by us giving our time. The most important asset we have is our time and effort. And we have to invest in our lodges ahead of time before we can start expecting these good returns on that investment. So we need to have that mentality that we're willing to give of ourselves. And I know most of the brothers here, well, I say all of the brothers here, I know for sure that are on this inner circle meeting, are definitely those brothers. But as a fraternity or as a brotherhood, we should be investing in ourselves ahead of time and creating that value, so that when it is time to say, okay, now we've created the education, we've stepped up our ritual to where no one can ever walk into our lodge and say that we don't do great ritual. We have excellent meals that are warm every time we show up, and we make sure we have those meals whether we like it or not, because people are coming right after work, coming to a lodge that's sometimes going to last until 9 o'clock at night. Mm-hmm. So, with all those things, we invest ahead of time on the front side, looking for the return on the back side. And more times than not, I started out as a mop boy when I was 19 years old for a transmission shop. And I told the guy, the owner of that shop, I said, man, I would love to own a shop like this one day. And he laughed at me that I said that. And by the time I was 28 years old, I bought his shop for $750,000. Tell me it can't be done. I invested in myself before I went and invested in my future, or I invested in myself before I expected anything in return. And so I think if we have that mentality, pushing ourselves with that mentality, we can't help but to succeed. Just hands down, we have no way to go but up. Excuse me, brothers. I need to
dude.
grab a drink.
It was good. Anyone else have any thoughts on financials tonight? What you got, Brother O'Brien?
Hey guys, yeah, I was inspired by what Brother Weber was saying earlier about the um, the thinking, kind of the thinking man's community when in its fraternity initially, the brotherhood, um, and I think that there's some difficult conversations that need to happen in terms of when you study history, there's a common theme. Well, what's really different between then and now? Like if you actually do like a master's degree or a you look at, okay, well, this was really different then. If you look at the history of ideas, if someone's doing like a PhD, they say, well, this is what really changed within a specific field from then to now. And I think at some point there's going to have to be a real hard conversation around what's different now than what it was in 1776. Where I guess where I'm going with that, this is the first ever government that even had the idea to be transparent to the citizens. That had never been done before in world history. And it was still new, and it wasn't perfectly transparent. There were all kind of layers and complexity of what's going on in different places. And so at some point, to me at least, that's one thing that's really different now. And so where them traditions are going to be the same, but where it lines up with the dues for me personally, in terms of the education, was also harder to come by. Now guys are going to feel like I can educate myself online with ChatGPT. Why do I need an education? So then it's where is that specific value added? And I just, as a new guy compared to other people in this room, I think there are conversations that are going to be tough around when and where is it okay to be that generation that says, well, we need to do some serious kind of new sections. Maybe there's a different kind of masonry for those guys who just want to pay their dues and go to lodge and not be active. Maybe there's something for guys who are of a different, maybe there's like a 10-year program for guys who are just sort of like really learning the ropes and are really rough, who are really getting an education that's, I'm just spitballing off the top of my head, but it seems to me there's going to have to be some conversation about what guys are looking for. It's different now from an educational experience that they can't get compared to what was hard to come by, 200 years ago or, in 1720 or
Well,
in terms of that value added, that's where guys are going to really, it's human nature. What the value is, they're going to say, oh, that's something I'm really looking to invest in myself that I can't get anyplace else.
well, we have something like that, I think, and I'm not. My acknowledgement is not necessarily like a my approval for whatever it's worth, but we have something like that already. I think, like if you have someone and they just want like a like just a social club, just somewhere where they just get together and just kind of hang out, right? You kind of have that already in the Blue Lodge, I think. And it's not where it's supposed to be, but that's kind of
Well,
what
you have
have.
it more in the shrine.
Yeah, I was gonna say the shrine too. And if you really want education, go Scottish Rite. If you really want just more of what Blue Lodge has to offer, then you go York Rite. Yeah. And so I think
camaraderie for York Rite.
Yeah, I think we have that to an extent. And also to your point, like for the longest time, Freemasonry was always on the forefront of, like, we were cutting edge everything. And so, like I have a lodge that has one of those old, I forgot they're even called now. You put a candle in it and it has like the cutouts and you can like rotate it. They use that for their lectures at one point. And they also,
I know what you're talking about.
I forgot to call it, but also they have,
it was the first projectors or what they were.
Yeah. I don't remember the call though.
But I can't remember what
there was another one that actually had like the glass plates for the lectures, and you put that in there.
Many lodges had those glass plates for a long time.
But that was cutting edge at the time. That was, I mean, really, we should be doing like Velocraft degrees. You should be having a like a VR headset for some parts at this point. If we were still as with it as we used to be. And so there's definitely this value gap. Like we stopped changing at some point, and the Freemasonry a lot of lodges get or the same Freemasonry a lot of people were offered in 1950s, and we have to change that. I see your hand up, kiddo. You go ahead.
I was trying to make my little yellow hand.
Magic lanterns. Thank you, Scott. Yes, that's.
So yeah, magic lanterns. There you go. Well, one of the things I like what Josh says, the fork and knife lodge, that's where it goes back to having a warm meal. I can tell you one of the points of the most success for a Goliad to keep members coming back is having a good meal at every lodge meeting. We still do. And we've had some good cooks for 20 years at our lodge. We've had good stewards at our lodge for 20 years. And it's only gotten better. I mean, I thought we had the best in 200-mile radius, but it's even better now. But Michael, one of the things that I truly believe, and it's actually been kind of substantiated through the Scottish Rite research that's been done up in New York, in the northern jurisdiction, is that you're right that today's young man has been raised on the internet, plain and simple, and they already have access to all this knowledge out there, but they don't have wisdom. And so what they do need is that apprentice master relationship that only we have to offer. And it's that interpersonal relationship that they're not getting playing video games with their friends on TV every day. And so we're seeing a lot of these younger men coming in to the lodges today with that thought in mind. And yeah, a lot of it is moving towards the social aspect because they don't have that. Their social aspect is online, playing video games, right? So having that interpersonal social aspect is important, but they're also validating their understanding of God, because ultimately that's what our ritual has to do with is our understanding of God, right? Now, do we define what that is? No, because we're not a religion. But ultimately, it helps us to have a like a North Star to look at, so that we can funnel our energies and talk with other men who care about these things as much as they do. And that's where, again, that apprentice master relationship comes in, to where we can mentor and guide people. But we have to be educating ourselves in our lodges to be ready for these guys, because if we aren't, and we don't have those things to offer, and we're not there to answer the questions, then they're going to walk away. They're going to join because they're interested, and then they'll walk away because they're not getting that fulfillment that they were looking for. Who had their hand raised first? Go for it, Jeff. What you got?
Hey, Mason.
Yeah.
There's a young man, a young Mason.
Why did you join Freemasonry?
After DMLA and then just our family being in it, it just kind of felt like the right thing to do.
But also, what about like camaraderie and being exposed to opinions?
Yeah,
that's what I'm really looking for.
Yeah, I mean that too, but my experience in DMLA exposed me to an experience that then made Masonry seem more inviting.
That you didn't get from the rest of the world because everybody's cloistered.
I named my son Mason also. That's funny.
Because the rest of the world's bipolar.
Yeah.
So polar opposites.
To be fair, I did ask him to get out of bed, but one of the big things that he appreciated about DMLA that then he has again found in Mason. I know some of you guys on the call here have actually got to spend some time around him, but it's the ability to make connections with people at a different level that we just don't make anymore.
Yes, that interpersonal relationship.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's absolutely
you
one of
can
the
count on
coolest
somebody.
things about DMLA is that DMLA is giving these young men the opportunity to start using that part of their brain that we should all be using on a more regular basis. And and I'm just tickled to see you on the screen here, Mason. I truly am.
Well, Mason's a Mason now. He's not just Demolay.
Yeah.
He's a Mason now. So it's he's taking it to the next level. But that's exactly what I was talking about, is that, that connection. Iron sharpens iron, and we need each other to be able to do that, especially in today's world where it's not okay to be a man. It's in our world, it's okay to be a man and to challenge each other to become better men. Right? I'm all for it.
Agree. What else we got tonight, guys?
I want to go back to bed, Dad.
I don't blame him.
Back to the cave to hibernate for 2 weeks.
Yeah, sorry. I just saw what time it is. Dang, it's already gotten late.
Yeah. Time flies when you're talking about money.
And having fun. We've delved into some pretty serious topics tonight, but as always, it has been a freaking blast.
Yeah, it's more or less just me ranting about my peeve, but it is what it is. It was good. I enjoyed it. Let's start doing final thoughts then.
I'll go first.
Okay.
So basically, we talked about dues, we talked about degree fees, we talked about endowments, and we talked about fundraising. But basically, if you're going to try to change anything about those in your lodge, I highly recommend read some books about those topics. Research how to present that to your lodge. Call every person on your membership. Talk to them about what you're trying to do and why. You're going to get some resistance. I know I did. I had one guy out of 58 members that I called, one guy that answered and he had a problem with it. Everybody else understood. So, I mean, they didn't all like it, but there was one guy that basically argued with me over the phone about it, and I was okay with that. I was okay with that. One out of 58, and he's like basically said, well, I may not renew my membership, and he paid anyway. So, we lost one member by doubling my dues for the lodge, but I think he was going to leave anyway. So it's not like, not like a big deal. So I wouldn't, be too scared to just go up against that challenge because it's worth it. We raised all our degree fees, and then we with all the education and stuff I was doing in lodge that year, we actually got like 5 new Masons that year. One of them made it to Master Mason, and we only projected maybe getting 2, and I ended up getting 5. So it was pretty cool. But we put on a lot of education in lodge, and it attracted a lot of Masons. So, just do some research, put in the work. That's ready. I think that was kind of what I talked about the last time we had a topic like this, is basically doing research, read books, try to figure out how to go about it without just, talking about it on a whim. I put together like a report of why and how and all that, and I emailed it to everybody and I called everybody. So, I mean, it was a well thought out deal, and we made it happen. So, I even got my endowments raised at the end of the year. So, we doubled the endowment, doubled the dues, and we raised all our degree fees. So,
you had a really good year, Brad. You did a really good job.
Everybody was really, really tired of me talking about money. By the end of the year. So, no. But hey, man, it needed to be done. and I was willing to do it. So anyway, that's all I got.
And when their AC craps out on them in 3 years, they're going to be looking back at you going, wow, we can actually pay him the going rate to put in the new AC system.
Right.
Anyone else got something?
I'm going to come back and harp on what I was talking about before. I feel like we need to go back to where we were in the late 1700s. I feel like we need to, give these young men that are coming in today the opportunity to live up to that time-worn mantra that we have used for years and years of, if you want to be a better man, you need to come see us. And I feel like we need to do it at the Blue Lodge level. I really don't want them to wait to go to the shrine to get camaraderie. I don't want them to wait to go to the Scottish Rite to get esoteric work. I don't want them to wait to go to Commandery for whatever it is that Commandery does.
What is it that Commander does? That's a good one.
Because I don't know. I'm not Scottish Rite, and I'm not
points we
Commandery. I'm a
ponder.
Blue Lodge Mason. I want them to get all that stuff in the Blue Lodge because that's where it all starts.
And as they should. Let me be clear. They
so-
should get it there. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
that's
makes
where
sense.
I'm at. I just want to, I feel like all of the other things will come if we provide that value added service. Dues will go up, endowments will go up, budgets will increase, all of the money stuff will happen once we start offering what we claim to be.
I love that, man.
Yeah, I like it.
Anyone else?
Who's next?
Yeah, I'll go. So, I've got a Masonic mentor that is, I think iron ass would put it politely. And one of the first things that we ever talked about was that there's three kinds of Masons, and they're all as important as the next, and we need all of them. And the first group is the group that, they joined the men's club. They parroted their esoteric work, and they either pay dues and never show up, or they bought a endowment and they never show up. But they did contribute at some point, or they contribute on a yearly basis, and they help fund the lodge. And then there's the guys that are in it strictly for the social aspect of things. So they pay the dues, they show up at the stated meeting, they put their $5 or $10 in the jar, and they don't have to sit at home with their wife who they don't want to listen to, And then there's the group which I would describe as the folks on the call tonight. The folks that are trying to get more out of it, that are trying to do more in their lodge, that are trying to do more for themselves. And to be honest, I think that the first two groups are as, if not more important than the folks on this call, because if it wasn't for them, then we might not get to be here. So I'm always one to support the Blue Lodge. I think, as we've all recognized, that's where it starts. And no matter what appendant body you join, or what different colored apron you get to wear at some meeting or hat or whatever it might be, that, we've got to remember those Blue Lodges and what they all started at. But, we're all here for a different thing, and we're all equally important.
Thank you for sharing. Let's see. So Brad's gone. Byron. Michael, did you talk? You talked, didn't you?
I'll chip in real quick if time's not going to go. Yeah, I was going to piggyback off of what Dennis was saying too about the spiritual aspect. I mean, we should be that organization where if somebody wants to understand God's grand design, they know where to find out. And because what we got that no one else has is we have that specific understanding of the grand architect and that architectural perspective that you're not going to get from church, you're not going to get from a university. And if people want to understand God's grand design, what it is, what it's turning into, and how they can contribute to it, I mean, that's an ace in the hole right there. And I just don't think that there's going to be a question. I mean, it's going to be like, do we even have enough guys to teach everybody who wants to know these things? That's the question. It's not about like, how are we gonna get more guys to pay dues? It's more like, how are we gonna make sure we can give enough attention to enough guys who are gonna be wanting to know the kind of stuff that they can only find out here.
Mm-hmm. I like that a lot.
That's
Tom,
a
did
good
you
point? Yeah.
did you have something, Tom?
Yeah, I kind of
Birthday boy.
everything that we talked about tonight kind of leads me to the same thing, which is when I got hired by a manufacturing company to take over a weld department, and there was a lot of changes I had to make, and there was probably 90% of the guys weren't very happy with the changes I was making, but the way that I got them to kind of agree with it was I emphasized more of the why than we just need to do this. And it seems to me that when you're raising dues and you're doing this and you're doing that, you have to have that benefit that we all talk about, and then you have to even put it on a very low level of why we're doing it. And until you get that buy-in from a majority of the members that are active of, yeah, this is a good idea, or this is what we need to do, you're always going to have a few that are going to buck against it. But unless you have that why, and I learned that out when I've been a manager for years. And when I started in the 90s, you could just dictate things, and that's just the way it was going to be. You didn't have to have a buy-in. Either you do it or you lose your job. Whereas now, the whole environment around any kind of business is similar to, you have to have that buy-in. And being that we're a voluntary organization, you just can't dictate things.
Mm-hmm.
And until we get that buy-in, you're just going to be spinning your wheels. And I think a lot of it comes from who we're bringing into the list. Yeah, if you've got like-minded people, like even when I was a manager and I would hire assistants, the bosses above me be like, well, you just hire people that are just like you. I was like, well, exactly. That's how it runs better. If you think alike, and I think it's just especially with this younger generation, most of the ones I come across, I really don't know what a Mason is. And I think it's where we kind of need to be a little more in the public to where they get to know what we are. Because if they're getting it from Hollywood and YouTube, we're not going to attract that many that are what we're looking for.
Bro, go watch National Treasure. What are you talking about?
well, I would think that a lot of guys that watch National Treasure,
and we're on YouTube. What are you talking about? We're on YouTube.
I'm talking about a majority.
I see.
There's some kooky stuff
now
out
you
there.
crawdad.
Well,
I see how
there's like the YouTube videos that my wife finds are nothing compared to the videos that I find. But it's and mostly if someone is watching National Treasure, they're like thinking, oh, cool, I would like be part of that group, and they're thinking of what it used to be like.
Yeah.
But I'm not really seeing a lot that are coming in that are wanting to know that, because if they were, they'd be wanting to know all these secrets. I mean, we went to, just a short story, me and the worshipful master of my lodge, our wives worked together. We went to a Christmas party, and one of the guys riding in our Uber noticed my Masonic necklace. He's like, oh, you guys are Masons. I was like, yeah, David and Tom are. And they're like, and they mentioned that one of their grandfathers was like 32nd. And he was like, what's that? And I'm sitting there and I'm like thinking, how can we do this and be light about it? And David had basically said, well, that's the highest degree in Scottish Rite. He's like, oh, really? I was like, yeah, that's where you learn the other ways of taking over the government. And David just kind of laughed, and I didn't say anything else. And the conversation ended. He's like, that was a really good way to get out of that without having to speak too much. And I was like,
wow.
Yeah,
That's
but
awesome.
I mean, it's kind of funny. And I mean, the other night we were doing a floor school when we were getting ready to do a EA degree in January, and I made the suggestion, why don't we change it up a little bit? Why can't we just darken the lodge room and just have candles instead of the regular lights we have? Because I thought, well, yeah, and we're
talking about our lodge?
Yeah. I thought that would be really neat.
It would be neat, but
but it's kind of getting the buy-in from everybody to do that, because I said,
Don't forget about those cataracts, man.
but to me that would have been the coolest thing when they took the or the blindfold off of me, and all I seen was these three guys in front of me illuminated by candles.
Yeah.
You know, that would have been way more impressive than what I saw.
Do be careful though. We are live, but yeah, I agree. I agree.
You know, so, but, and that's things that I think of all the time. What can we do to change it to where it makes it a little more for the person going through it?
I like
You
that,
know,
man. No, I'm on the same page with you about the lighting thing for sure.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Just be aware of the committee on work.
As long as it's not a graded degree, they can't say squat. What you got, Josh? Come on now.
I don't think Josh is still here.
He might not be.
Yeah,
there he
he
is.
had
He's here.
he had a social aspect last night.
Yeah, I had to get to my microphone. No, I've just been listening. I agree with what everybody's saying tonight. I see a lot of what we talked about in some of the lodges that I'm a member of. I am guilty of being a member of 3 lodges right now. I think in the coming years that's going to slim back down to just being 1, because Fork and Knife Lodges is not the lodge I want to belong to. So it's one of those, why keep going there when I get no added benefit, on top of I get to see the same 15 people at all the other lodges anyway. So, but yeah, I agree with everything was said. It was a good discussion. Sorry I jumped on a little late, but yeah, I think it's all good.
Love it. I was just gonna say, is that everybody? By the way, I think that's everybody.
You go ahead.
Yeah,
Then me.
I was just gonna say, I was thinking a lot about what brother O'Brien and Byron were saying, and I want to be sure that we're clear. And it was pointed out a little bit earlier with Sky, like you have to have the value, and this isn't like a one size fits all approach for a lodge, and by that I mean that just raising dues doesn't fix everything. You have to provide value, and that value has to be there. And that was pointed out earlier is people are looking for that old symposium type of get together where there's a huge emphasis on education. And it was said earlier, don't worry so much. If we had education, you wouldn't have to worry so much about people who's going to be petitioning. And it reminded me of this thought process I had when I was worship master many years ago, in that I never gave a second of acknowledgement to the people that weren't there. And what I mean by that is, you'll get the worship masters and they'll start every meeting by complaining, I wish more people were here. No, dude. You acknowledge everyone that is there, and you provide value to those people. You provide them with value. And when they get value, more people show up. And it's the same thing. We can't lament we don't have enough people joining our lodge. If we get that one person, we pour everything into him. We give him the value that he's looking for, and then other people will come. And that value needs to come from in the form of education. That's what they need to be looking for is education. They may want to do other things, and that's fine, but we're focusing on education. We're teaching you. We said, and here's why. We promised you we were going to take a good man and make him better, right? And so that is 100% our mission with you when you join a lodge. Like if you want the social aspect or anything, that's all you, man. But what we're doing is we are educating you and making you a better person. That is first and foremost our goal and what we will do. And that's by providing value. And that comes from quality degrees, quality food when you show up, education in the form of presentations and lectures and festive boards and all that stuff, but also from your memory work that you turn in and your research that you do for your presentations that you present to our lodge before you even receive your next degree, moving in lather, rinse, repeat. So that by the time you're a master mason and you turn in all your work and you've given you've given at least 3 presentations. You know how to talk and how to do research, and you expect the same thing of all the other members of your lodge and all the other new people coming in. And as was pointed out, you have to start with Blue Lodge. I think it was Byron, and that's how you start moving the bar. That's how you start making that change. Is you set those expectations from day one when the new guy joins your lodge, and they're doing all these things. And give it a year or two, and all these new people will be given presentations. You'll have a lodge that is focused on education, that values that over business meetings, and you're actually moving the bar on these guys. I also wanted to say, talking about what Brad was pointing out with dues and reaching out to people and things like that, and that's what you have to do. I've spoken with people before, and they've talked about they raising dues at their lodges and people leaving. So there's like a fear that people will leave. Here's the thing. First of all, if you're reaching out to people and explaining to them why the dues are being raised, not just some arbitrary raising, but educating them. Here's what we're receiving every year. Here's what it costs to run our building every year. This is what we want to raise them to, and this is why. And as long as you have a sound, logical argument on why this number has been chosen and why we're doing it, I'm not saying you'll pass, and I'm not saying people won't gripe, but you're not going to have as many people leave if you do raise them. Also, this is going to sound really callous, but if you have, say you have 10 dues paying members and you charge $50 a year, that's $500, right? What if you say, I want to raise it to $1,000? Will 1 or 2 people leave? Possibly. You'd have to lose half your membership, and to even start. Let me put it this way. Let me back up.
You'd have to lose 9/10 of your membership for you to lose money on that deal.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, yeah, and it sounds really callous, but if they're, and I'll be honest, like Brad was talking about when he called that old brother. Brad, when you called that guy, was he an active member? No. And that's the thing. Like if you have an older brother and he's not active, and he either can't get there or lives too far away or just can't drive at night or whatever, I don't blame him. Like, you're not getting value out of the lodge, but we can't halt the wagon for one person. So we have to move forward. And like was pointed out, we can offer, like I said, you can't offer like a tiered due structure, but you can say, okay, this brother is 90 years old. Let's oh crap, what'd you say that term was, Dennis? I totally brain farted.
Exempt.
You can exempt them from dues. Yeah.
You can give him a lifetime membership, even if he's not a 50-year Mason. You can give him a lifetime membership.
Yeah. Exempt them, lifetime membership. You have options, and it totally eases the burden of that brother. So that's all I wanted to say. Aside from, thank you all for coming tonight, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in January at the dinner. And I hope all of you have a Merry Christmas or whatever holiday you choose to observe during this period of time. And if you're enjoying these conversations, if you're on the sidelines and you want to be in this kind of conversation, I encourage you to scroll down a little bit and hit the join button, and you can join this inner circle. Great conversations. And this is just the superficial part. Like, what you see here is just the tip of the iceberg for what the inner circle actually offers. There's a whole lot of behind the scenes conversations and things like that. And we've had quite a few people join in the last 2 months. I think a lot of people usually join towards the end of the year, but also with the dinner coming up, there's a lot of excitement about that. So I encourage anyone that's kind of on the fence and thinking they don't know if they want to do that yet, invest in yourself, man. Invest in yourself, join the inner circle, because if you want to grow from a Masonic perspective, and if you're not getting it at your home lodge, this is a great place, and you can access us anywhere. So that's what I would encourage. That's all I got, Dennis.
All right. So, I tend to agree with every one of you guys, and I know I come across as as very opinionated, and sometimes it sounds like I'm talking down to people. I get very passionate, and I apologize if I've turned you off. If it gets you excited about Freemasonry, I don't apologize one single bit. But I see the value in every aspect of of Freemasonry. I've been talking about our lodge over at Oso that's been doing all these things and making these adding the value to the lodge that we've never had before. And you mentioned the candidates that are, or the petitioners, or not the petitioners, but the actual new brothers that as they go through each degree, they're giving papers. We also do that now, and we have been for a couple of years now, and it's worked out great. And those brothers are still showing up to lodge and still active members of our lodge and participating in these degrees. And in fact, now they're part of this stellar master's degree team that we've got. I would also like to say, well, and even this past week, we had a social event where we did have a charity event where we asked everybody to bring some food to contribute to the food bank on behalf of our lodge, and we had a big social event. It was a social dinner, and it was a charitable food drive, and we basically provided the ham and brisket, and everybody else brought in potluck style sides and desserts and stuff, and it was a great time. We ended up, providing like 85 pounds of food for the food bank, which is pretty cool in my opinion. And in that we had our social aspect, and we also do that in other forms. We have floor school regularly. We have education at each stated meeting. Another thing that I'd like to bring up is at another lodge, this one right here, which is, let me get out of the way here and point. That one right there is Goliad 94. That's the one I'm past master of, as well as Josh Kovar here. Man, I got the ideas that I have today on ritual and floor school from that lodge. 10 years ago, I got my ass chewed out and basically skull fed spit in my face for not getting stuff right with my ritual, because I kept messing up and I would laugh about it, and it wasn't a joke to these guys. And they made sure that I understood that it wasn't a joke. And now, granted, I don't expect for anybody else to do it that way, but old Marvin Gunn, he was a different cat, and I still love him dearly, even though he's in with the Grand Architect today. But he instilled in me the importance of ritual, and I consider myself a philosophical person. I'm more of a someone who likes to discuss theology and philosophy, but I believe that if I don't understand the ritual, oh, did you see that? Did you see my skull in the background?
Yeah, it popped up earlier too. I was curious. Just surrounded by skulls, like
if I don't know the ritual, how am I going to know what it means? How am I going to be able to dig in deeper if I don't know the ritual? It's absolutely important to what we do.
That's sick.
But anyways, but another thing that Goliad does that I absolutely love, I mentioned the good food. We should always have good food, and we have great ritual, and we have very structured business meetings. You don't go on and on talking about different topics. There's an agenda, and it's stuck with, and it's short and concise, and then you get on to bigger and better things. And in Goliad, what that means is that after lodge, we go next door to the pub and have a drink after the lodge meeting, and everybody gets together and has a drink. Or after floor school, everybody goes up the street to Jalisco's to have dinner together. And that's a very important aspect of our lodge is community. And I'm going to tell you that there's brothers. We had a freeze a couple of years ago that man, it was busting everybody's pipes throughout town. We were without electricity for a couple of weeks here in town, and there was the brother that checked on us and brought us different heat lamps and a heater from his house because he was staying with his dad where they had a generator and everything. Um, but that's the kind of community we have, that we check on each other and we care about each other. And you just can't get that everywhere in today's world. We're all moving too fast, and we're all too stuck on our phones to pay attention to those relationships. And I think that if nothing else, we have to value those relationships and remember that without each other, we're nothing. And yeah, the brothers that are at home are important. They spent a lot of years, and I'm not going to go too far into this because I've said it before, but a couple of years back, a brother said, that's not my Freemason. And he's right. Back in the 80s, people didn't join for the same reasons they join today. And people aren't joining today for the same reasons they did back in 1920. And so he's right. That wasn't his Freemasonry. However, what we're getting back to today is this renaissance of looking at where we come from. We're starting to learn from some of those things that we've dropped off to the side, but there is value in those people that are staying home. I do get that. The thing is, we can't hold back the value of what's happening within our lodge, the synergy that's happening within our lodge because of people that might be upset that are staying home. And if it's because they can't make it at night, maybe we ought to have a rideshare program to where we pick up our brothers and bring them with us. We've got brothers that do get toted up to lodge. Joe K gets toted up to lodge every meeting from one of the brothers. Every meeting at every lodge that he attends, he gets toted up somewhere by somebody else. That's happened with a few different past masters from Goliad over the years. And that just goes back to that community. When we care about each other as much as or more than the common guy walking down the street, then we tend to go a little bit further and make that extra effort to help everybody get back to lodge. I mean, I even get crap from people like Josh because I don't show up at Goliad as much as I used to because it's the same night that I go to Scottish Rite. But that's also why I go to OSO, because I still want that Blue Lodge experience, and it's important to me to keep the Blue Lodges going. Everything I learned in the Scottish Rite, and everybody should remember this, everything that we learn in the Scottish Rite and the York Rite, and whatever body we belong to, AMD, whatever. The whole purpose of that is to take it back to the Blue Lodge, because the reality is that all of the principles that we've learned in these higher degrees, or let's not say higher degrees, but in these lateral degrees, all of them are prevalent in the Blue Lodge. If we study hard enough, we can see them there. If we know what we're a part of, we can see them there. So as we learn, we need to look at the commonalities and take them back to our Blue Lodge so that we can be that source for the brothers when they walk in, for the brothers who are looking for a little bit more, so that we can be that mentor, because that's ultimately what it is. We are always a master, and we are always an apprentice. We are a master to someone. Someone's looking to us for answers, but we are also an apprentice to someone else. We should always be seeking more light from those who have that wisdom where we only have knowledge. I can read it in a book all day long, but this guy has wisdom because he's not only read it, but he's lived it and he understands it, and he can pass that on to me. And so I'm happy to be that EA all day long. If I'm the dumbest man in the room, that's okay, because I'm in the room. And that's how we should all carry ourselves. So with that being said, brother, stay on for just a few minutes. Don't forget, we do have our dinner coming at Grand Lodge. But you Inner Circle members, stay on for just a minute after Justin closes out. But for the show,